Well, good Friday evening to you, and we're back with another one of our daily devotions, and we're trying to do something different. We're doing it outside, and you can see the new church building there behind me, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but this goes along with our devotion, and so you may hear a little background noise. The highway's behind me, and it's a beautiful day, and there are people out mowing their yards, and those type of things are going on. But I want to share a verse with you. One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 61. And it's become really a great comfort to us during these days. But the Bible says in Psalm 61, verse 1, "Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy." And I come up here. This is a spot that our church folks know well, just across the highway from the new building. And it is a different perspective for me. Now, I've spent most of the days inside of that building looking at little details as far as this wall or this floor or this light or this sound system or all those little details that you have to sometimes pull away and look at it from a different vantage point. And I love this psalm. It says in verse number 2, "When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." I'll remind you, it did not say if you get overwhelmed. Because if David, the man after God's own heart, had times in his life when he felt like life was overtaking him, then don't you know, you and I all have the same thing. And so the little emphasis here is, when I am overwhelmed, what do I do? David said this, "Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." I'm glad this psalm goes on to talk about this rock being a shelter, being a fortress, being a refuge during our time of need. I'm glad it reminds us what God has been. But I want you to think with me for just a second about a higher rock. In this part of the country, we have beautiful hikes that you can go to, climb out on a rock, overlook the whole valley, and maybe mountain ranges on down past through there. And when I think about a higher rock, I think about two things I want to leave with you. First of which is this: when we get to a higher rock, it changes our perspective. Today, I've been in that building looking at a small detail, but when I come back up here, it reminds me that God has placed a church in the center of this town to be a lighthouse to this community and to the world. Instead of dealing with the details, we see a different perspective. The second thing we think of is it adds clarity. Sometimes in life we cannot understand what to do next and where to come from, and we think of all the things coming into us in life. But when we go alone with God, He reminds us that He gives us a different perspective, because we do not have a temporal perspective, we do not have a personal perspective, but we have God's eternal perspective, and we can get clarity. Now, I've brought you up here on the mountain to one of my favorite spots, and you can look around and see the new building there, and we may pan around just a little bit. You can see our city, and you can see the mountains all around. And while we're thinking about the details of that building, we back up and look at and remind ourselves that God has a purpose. God has placed us in this world for this time to accomplish His purpose. So when your heart gets overwhelmed, run to the rock that is higher than you.